If you notice, the first visibility that you have is the MITRE chain. Because we are purely a behavior-driven threat detection system, we focus a lot in identifying tools, techniques, and practices that the attacker is using. We map our detection functionalities to MITRE chains or MITRE attack matrix. If we identify two or more MITRE techniques being utilized within an organization, we call it as a MITRE chain and put that as a visibility index on the primary dashboard. As on date, we curate feeds from over 100 plus sources, a combination of open source and commercial feeds, and keep the threat intel continuously ingested and enriched with the logs that we are collecting from multiple sources from the customer's environment. There is a classification upon how exactly are we showcasing each of the threat intel derived insights in high, medium, and low respectively. Malicious file is a data point that is purely derived out of the sandbox that is consistently studying files that are being continuously downloaded within an organization. If the sandbox identifies a file to be malicious in nature, which is being downloaded by the end user, based upon the static and the dynamic analysis patterns, the platform recognizes it to be a malicious file and showcases it as an incident on the dashboard. A quick insight on the heat map of traffic that is originating from multiple sources across the world. A high-level picture on the classification of alert category in terms of critical, high, medium, and low respectively. As we spoke about our mapping to MITRE attack matrix, we call out what are those top hosts on which we have identified multiple tactics and respectively techniques. The insights over here are extremely intuitive. The analyst can get into the specifics of each of the technique or the tactic that is being observed within the organization. A quick trend on technique and the tactic. A perspective of scanned files. Essentially, this data point is generated out of the sandbox. It calls out the number of files that are being analyzed by the sandbox. Because we are sitting right behind the firewall, ingesting the span or the tab of the egress and the egress point, we thought we will also have a perspective of the intrusions by adding the value on top of what we are existingly derived. We give a quick insights of intrusions that are observed within the network that way. A significant perspective of events that we see over the time, the reputation of IP communications that we see, the ASN resolutions that are happening within the organization, and the top file types that we observe out of the sandbox while being downloaded within the customer's environment. Upon some real good dashboards that BluSapphire offers in terms of gaining a high-level visibility in terms of audit and also analysis. Here is a quick dashboard which gives a quick insight of the audit perspective of Windows environment. The number of active users, the active hosts, the logon activities that are happening from the source countries over the time, majority of failed logins, majority of logged in users, most common processes that are observed on the Windows end machine, and of course the least common processes, enabling an analyst to quickly take a call if there is anything suspicious process that is being observed as part of the list. We also carry out a VT lookup based upon the process insights that we are studying over here. Because PowerShell is completely abused, we call out who exactly executed a PowerShell activity. Similarly, the command prompt as well. And if there is a obfuscated PowerShell execution, we also call that over here. Certain set of suspicious processes such as parent or child, we call that out over here on the dashboard. There's a lot of data that you may want to have a quick look upon on this dashboard to have a detailed perspective of the Windows infrastructure that you have today within the environment. This dashboard gives you a quick view of the events that we are receiving and a quick overview of Windows infrastructure that you have today, the kind of events that we are ingesting, and of course the top host from where majority of events are seen, the top event IDs associated, and of course the sources, the top sources, the hosts, and the processes that were observed. A detailed insight of behavior, the entity behavior, is captured over here because we go ahead and consistently capture the log insights associated to advanced security logging functionality of Sysmon, which gives a great insight of user and the entity behavior in terms of tracking what kind of parent processes that are being triggered, associated child processes, the process IDs associated, the number of hosts that are active, the number of users that are active, the processes and the command lines from where they are executed, the network activities associated, and finally, the associated logs are tagged along on the same dashboard for further analysis. A lot of analytics can be built from here itself within the dashboard. A similar insight is equally built for Linux or a Unix system. We give you a quick perspective of processes, the audit insight, if there are any specific cron jobs that are being running. You can have a selective host and identify what's happening on a specific host from here itself. The associated raw logs are again part of the dashboard. A detailed network perspective is also projected over here on the network visibility or the network analytics dashboard. This gives both the security team and the network team to identify how exactly the operations are and what kind of anomalous activities that are potentially happening on the network at any given standpoint. With the amount of digitization that we have seen, organizations are shifting their operations onto cloud, which essentially gives a wider reach for an attacker also. It becomes imperative that you have 100% visibility as far as your cloud applications and workloads are concerned. Over here, let us focus upon an application of Windows, the application that is part of Microsoft. We're calling out the high-level overview of Exchange activities that are captured over here. Multiple use cases that are associated to Exchange, such as logins happening from countries outside the perimeter of where the organizations or operations are, you can trigger an alert associated. You can have a detailed visibility on Azure Active Directory, Exchange, OneDrive, and SharePoint, or any other application that you're using today. We are also collecting insights from network and the security infrastructure. In this case, if you look at the dashboard, we give you a detailed perspective of firewall logs that we are consistently ingesting. On this single pane of glass, you get to see the entire visibility of the firewall inside in terms of actions taken, the kind of communications that were observed, what are those top 10 users, the actions that were performed by the firewall, the connection, and of course the session state. It is equally important to have a holistic visibility on application logs as well. In this case, let me present a sample dashboard of an SAP Audit Insight. In this example, we are ingesting logs specific to SAP Audit Insights and giving you a detailed insights of how exactly the users are logging in, what are those top users on which the logging has happened, the SAP messages associated to the logging, and the raw log associated to each of the login activity are being part of the dashboard itself.